Hi, it's Roger here with episode 9 of Entrepreneur TV, and as you can see, I'm coming to you from Singapore, where we are seeing the big contrast between the big banks and office buildings next to the origins of Singapore, which is Boat Quay. That is the shop houses, the original waterfront where the fishing, the trading took place, like only 100 years ago, which actually created this amazing city. And if you are new to this Entrepreneur TV series, go and just click here to subscribe, because what I'm going through right now with everyone who is following along is a very specific step-by-step to build your business, to create your wealth, and to create that financial freedom, which we all can get to, provided we're taking it at the right step at the right time. And in this episode, we take the first 8 episodes and we basically connect them together through an equation. The most important equation when it comes to any investments or any business activity you have, because it's the same equation which links together every dollar that gets spent or invested today. There's over $5 trillion that flows through New York, London, Singapore, through my hands, through your hands. Every single day there's $5 trillion which actually wakes up and changes physically to someone else's hands, and it all happens as a result of this equation as well, right? So make sure you subscribe if you haven't done that yet, and also watch the last episode, because the last episode is the context by which we're actually going to get into this episode. All right, let's get right into it. This river here has 2 things going. It has a height and it has a width. Actually, the Singapore River is a little different, as I'll get to. But basically the height at any one point, the gradient, will determine the speed of the water flow. And the width will determine the volume of water flow as well. So pretty much if you know what the gradient of the river is, you know what the volume is, you can pretty much figure out how much flow there is at any one point. And exactly the same happens when it comes to money as well. All money flows as a result of an equation, which is that wealth equals value times leverage. That's the equation. If you are in a job, you are actually getting paid as a result of this one equation. If you've got a business, if you're in property, or if you're in shares in the stock market, it's the same equation that everyone uses. How does it work? The way it works is, first of all, by thinking of value exchange. Money will only ever flow as a result of going from high value to low value, just like water will only flow from high ground to low ground. And so, for example, if I decide I want to sell my shoes, and I decide to sell my shoes for $100, well, that clearly means I don't value the shoes as much as $100. I'd rather have the $100. Someone comes along and says, well, I value the shoes at $100, I'll give you the money. That means they clearly value the shoes more than me. They end up with the shoes, I end up with the money. And all value exchange determines flow in that way. So that means that if you're in a job right now, someone's valuing you enough in your time to be able to pay you a certain amount of money. Someone else may pay you more. Just like in the last episode, we talked about how orange juice, you know, someone might be willing to pay $1 for it in a supermarket. Someone might be willing to pay $10 for it when they're in a penthouse suite of a hotel. And what's the difference? It's not just that they see more value of the orange juice as part of that experience. It's about the fact that they are leveraging that value through that experience as well. You know, it's why someone in a restaurant might pay $4 because they are leveraging it with the experience of the meal. Why someone who's already spending hundreds of dollars or even thousands of dollars to stay at a hotel is willing to add that extra $10 in because it's leveraging with their experience of being at a hotel. So whereas value, if you want to double the speed of money flow, I could say, well, if I want to make $200 instead of $100, how could I create shoes which are doubly as valuable? The other way I could do it is say, well, if I just wanted to make $200, why don't I just sell 2 pairs of shoes, right? That's leverage. It's about the volume of flow at any one time. It's the width of the river. Now, why is this so important? Because as I'm about to share with you, and I'm going to take you somewhere in a moment as well, there is someone here who's been really known as the Warren Buffett of Asia, Warren Buffett of Singapore, who made over $1 billion starting with the first $10. It really was literally $10 he had. He turned it into $1 billion, and he did it over a period of time, not by some kind of clever strategy, but by persisting with this one equation. I'm going to share with you exactly how he did that. But the second thing is by you understanding that you have a natural genius. If you have not taken the genius test yet, it's free. It's based on my book, which became a New York Times bestseller over summer. You can take it by just following this link here, subscribing, and then actually becoming part of this, and you'll find that you're already at one specific level within the lighthouse, which we call the 9 levels of the wealth spectrum, and you're also a particular genius, which links to this equation: wealth equals value times leverage, right? So come with me while I kind of explain exactly how this works. I want to show you something which has been around here for some time. As I'm going to show you, most people here who are busy walking around in the Central Business District, they don't even know what I'm about to share with you, right? That's kind of like our little secret on this little video. And I'm kind of picking up my shopping here as well because I wasn't actually planning to do this video today. I'm on my way to the airport. I have shopping, Christmas shopping. This is actually gifts that have come from my team here in Singapore. So thank you, team. I've just been to the office where I picked those up, and I'm backpacking, as you can see here as well, about to head off to the airport. One thing that is so powerful about this concept of us each having our own natural personal path, so we each have our river effectively, is that when you take the square that the four geniuses are linked to, there are two opposites to value. So you say, okay, I'm going to create some more value. You know, if I'm only getting paid $10 an hour, then I'm going to find a way to get paid $20 an hour. Well, that's still leveraging your time. Maybe there's other ways for you to be making more money without leveraging that time, right? But when it comes to how you actually create value in the first place, there's two ways, which are the opposite of each other. If you find out you're a dynamo genius, which is at the top of the square, these are the people who have their head in the clouds, then you have a certain way you create value through intuitive thinking, which means head in the clouds, always come up with new ideas. So the way you create value is through innovation, a very specific way of creating value. And some of us do it naturally, while others have a really tough time coming up with a better idea than others around us. It's not our natural flow. The opposite, you know, someone like Richard Branson, someone like a Steve Jobs, great at innovation. Walt Disney, great at innovation. But the opposite would be someone like a Warren Buffett, right? Warren Buffett doesn't have to create anything. In fact, he goes out of his way to not be trying to be overly creative on things. And so for someone like Warren Buffett, he's the opposite, which is basically tempo genius. That's like the autumn energy at the base of the square, where you don't create value through innovation, you create it through timing. So some of you are great at creating value through timing, through service, you know, getting repeat business without having to create new products. So there's always a way that if you want to, at the very beginning of your path, if you want to actually start getting started and you're saying, okay, well, I just want to, you know, work with someone where I can add some value to their business. You find the people you want to work with that you're aligned with. If you're more of a dynamo creative genius with your head in the clouds, you'll be able to say, hey, look, I'll take some of your products, some of the things that you've got excess stock of, I'll be able to sell those or get them out and package them with other people's things in such a way that you'll generate extra revenue. And as a result, I'll just take a percentage of that revenue. The opposite, which is at the base of the square, aren't those who have their head in the clouds, is have those ears to the ground. Hey, look, just let me connect up with some of your team members or the people who are your customers to invite them back to do more with you. And from the revenue that you generate that way, you get some percentage as well. Now, by the way, I know it's not so easy if you're just getting started to be able to just go in, knock on a door and say, I'd like to help you. There's a very specific way to do that, and make sure that you're following along on the missions on Genius U, where I go through the way to be able to turn any request into an opportunity, that you actually create something which is almost impossible for people to say no to, because they can see that really for very little risk, you're going to give them some real great benefit. So how would you do that, right? What would that look like? Follow the link here to go straight to one of the first steps where you can start getting connected to that flow, right? But then again, that's just two different types of value. All value is created as a result of innovation, which is at the top of the square, or as a result of timing, which is at the bottom of the square. You could be either intuitive in your thinking or sensory in your thinking, but they're the opposites of each other. So being aware of them being opposites is super important, because you can't do both at the same time. Okay, what about leverage? Leverage also has two opposites. Leverage has an opposite. We're going through the atrium here, by the way, and here's a nice little message for Christmas time. Hope. And there is the big Christmas tree in the middle of the UOB Bank, which is one of the biggest banks here in Singapore at the moment. And here we are just about to leave the river, because as I said, there's something I'd really love to share with you right now. There's two opposites to leverage as well, right? This is also part of the equation. On the right-hand side, if you're more right-brained, then there's one which is for the blaze geniuses, who are those who are really good with people, more extrovert, and that is called magnify. Magnify is being able to magnify your brand, you know, magnify your community. So what's happening is that if you have, you know, a great product like a bag that you're selling, and you magnify it with a brand, you can sell that same bag with the same cost of production for double as much, for quadruple as much, because of the brand, right? So when you have the right branding, or you have the right team, the right partnership, you can suddenly take whatever that one concept is that you're doing and leverage it up. You know, we talk about that with the, you know, the orange juice, as I mentioned earlier in the last episode, where, you know, that orange juice, when it starts being leveraged at a higher and higher level, from the restaurant up to the penthouse suite, people are willing to pay more and more for it, because they're leveraging it with the experience they're now getting or with a brand experience within that restaurant or within that hotel as well. Okay, what about when it comes to the opposite of magnify? That's the introvert side. That's the final of the 4 geniuses, which is steal genius. And that's when we're now talking not about how to magnify, we're talking about how to multiply. We're talking about not how do I do this in such a way that I'm creating one complex thing that can't be repeated, like, you know, an Oprah Winfrey brand or a Donald Trump deal. But you're actually doing the opposite, which is how am I doing this in such a way that I can keep multiplying it again and again? So I can answer the question, how can I do this without me, as opposed to how does this only happen with me? You know, you're actually able to say, you know, how do I make it simple so I can make many, like, you know, many shoes, as opposed to make it complex and make only one, like a branded shoe. So these are the different ways that you can create the plumbing system to be able to actually increase speed of flow at any one time, and also to increase the volume of flow at any one time as well. Always, it will be as a result of adding more value or as a result of leveraging that value as well. You go back to any of the videos from before now and you go, okay, where in the stories that Roger's sharing is someone creating value? Is it through innovation? Is it through timing? Where in the story is someone leveraging that value in such a way that it actually adds more to everyone? And that's really the key to all of this, is when you start realizing that these two are linked intimately. So every time you actually add value or leverage, the actual pie of flow grows. It isn't like you take flow from someone else. The actual flow itself accelerates and grows in such a way that there's more for everyone. And that's really the element of concept of flow that we're here to talk about today, and that you're going to be thinking about too, is if I'm going to go from the 10,000 to the 100,000, if I'm going to actually increase what kind of game my business is playing, how do I do that one step at a time with people who are at that same level as me? And that might mean shifting where you're at as well. And this really comes to this final step around doing your duty. You know, we have so far covered the first 2 steps at infrared level. If you're in negative cash flow, you know, you might think, okay, I can make a bit more money and it'll get me positive, but I want to go just grow my business. No, the key thing right now is to make sure that you are following your own natural flow and growing that flow, so your personal cash flow is growing. Your business then will end up becoming far more successful as a result of that. I know I've shared this video here before, I'm going to do it again. This is my story of how I went from negative cash flow to positive to over $1 million a year in positive cash flow within 2.5 years, just by taking exactly the same steps that I'm asking you to take right now, to actually just take it one step at a time. After number 1, creating the plumbing system, which we've gone through, and that's the number 1 step at infrared level, basement level going up, which is how do I make sure that I've got a plumbing system that allows me to increase my personal flow. Number 2, turning on the tap, which is commit to conduct. How do I make sure I've actually got that conduct and that flow that's now being created? We get to number 3 now, which is do your duty. And what is that? That's about realizing that the biggest reason that you haven't added more flow at this point to your life actually is something going on internally yourself. This is not the time to try and get internal motivation. It's the time to get external motivation. The number of people I've met who will be in a situation where they'll say, I can't make more money, even if I try to. And then suddenly their wife gets pregnant, or suddenly their mum needs an operation. And boom, straight away, they know they've got to get that extra money. They'll go out, they'll find it. When you really need to, when wealth goes from an opportunity to an obligation, when it goes from a maybe to a must, everything transforms. And that is really the key to all of this, is about duty. It's not about you wanting it. It's not your passion. This is not about you going, I'm just going to go follow my passion. For some of us, that's the biggest challenge at this first level. Passion comes later. At this point, it's about really saying, right, I've got to actually get really committed to where I'm going with my life. So duty is about something outside yourself, which doesn't push you, it pulls you. What's your duty? Here I am right now at the one thing I wanted to share with you. Now, first of all, you'll notice here that there is a this is like a kind of a carving that's been put here, a statue. If you look around, no one's looking at it, right? Very few people even notice that this is here. So let me share a little bit about this so you can kind of see what duty really looks and feels like. You can see here from this little note here, this little engraving, Progress and Advancement, commissioned and presented by Lien Ying Chow, 1988. So Lien Ying Chow came to Singapore in the 1920s with $10. He was like 16 years old. He came from China, and he had a duty. He had a determination and duty to be, for the people who helped him to come here to Singapore, of as much service as he could be to this country. And so when he started, he basically got a little trading, a little trading business, down in Boat Key. He got connected up with like all the traders. Sometimes when tough things happen, what happens is we kind of like think, oh, this is terrible, market's gone bad, I can't do business. He always did the opposite. He always sees the opportunity in everything. So when the British troops came in, when there was this tension between the British and the Chinese, he became the guy who was the go-to man for the British to be able to provide trading between them and the Chinese. And he actually has within this was his design, this statue here, it actually has, if you go around the corner here, an image of the very beginning when he got here, which is the little trading village. Here it is, you can see it. And you can see the ship, which is where they actually are offloading all the goods into Singapore. So this was his business. But then what happened was that once the war started, the Japanese came. He kind of escaped to Australia. He had 2 little diamonds that he kind of like sewed into. He put all his money into 2 diamonds, sewed them into his jacket, escaped to Australia. And after the war was over, he came back again, and he became part of the whole campaign to rebuild Singapore as well. And you can see that from this image of his early beginnings, he then basically became part of building Singapore. When Singapore was looking for its independence, he was there campaigning, first of all with the traders and then with citizenship. He's one of the first citizens of Singapore. And then when the time was right to be able to build up from that, you can see now, this is Boat Key, here's all the market traders here, that from this, he then got to a point where he had enough support that he could start a bank. The bank he started was what is now known as OUB, Overseas Union Bank, that got connected up with UOB, which are the 2 buildings that I started with. These were both, this one over here was built in 1988, and this is basically the legacy of what he left behind. He died about 10 years ago now, but it's a legacy of what he left behind here, where he effectively built the commercial infrastructure and hub of all of Singapore, one of the first big buildings here in the middle of what is now the CBD, where he created all of the flow that you actually see all around us. He started with $10. He ended up with over $1 billion. And it wasn't something that happened overnight. It happened by him continually focusing at how do I add value? How can I leverage that value? Who has value that I can leverage, right? And who can leverage my value? And every time that he actually thought of that, it wasn't about him getting wealth, it was about him giving wealth. It was about him creating that wealth for others as well. And every single time that he was ready to give up because tough times were too tough, because things were at a point where wars was stopping the country, the economy was going bad, he just saw his duty as the one reason for him to keep on going. So that's what I want to share with you. If you were to say, well, what is my duty? Is it to my family? Is it to my kids, to my wife, my husband, my parents? Is it to my community? Right? Is it to my country? Or is there something else that is enough to keep me going through good times and bad? That's what this 3rd step is all about. There is a very specific thing you can do in Genius U, a mission on this whole idea of commit to conduct and do your duty, which you can do right here. Just go to this link and follow that along to see how that works. But what I really urge you is to know that it's all within you. Sometimes it's the external motivation which actually makes it work, and it's about us making our connection to that. Remember, as I said in the last video, wealth isn't how much money you have, it's what you left if you lose all your money. Here is a great little tribute to this man and his life. And while you've got the statue, which kind of shares that as part of the legacy, you've got the actual reality all around, as you can see from all these buildings, which are his real legacy. What's your legacy going to be? Where are you going to be heading? What's going to pull you as opposed to push you? Really just make that the center of who you are. And on the next video, we're going to see just how, with that motivation and that plan that you're putting together, how we can make sure we start connecting you up the flow at a level which is personalized for you. Until the next video, we'll speak to you later. Make sure you subscribe and we'll connect in a week's time.